That'll be a good snack for later. Probably easier just. There we go. I've decided that prior to hay feeding season next year, I really need to put a hay gate on that feeder. I put one on the feeder down here for the yearlings, and I really like how much work it saves me not having to rake hay every several days. So that's gonna be on the list. Oh, settle down. I've got Littles locked right in here by the squeeze chute now for a couple of reasons. For one, I feel like he's not really eating this grass as quickly as I hoped he would, and you know, it doesn't help, I guess, that I'm feeding him hay and grain in here. His belly's probably full and he's not too motivated to eat this grass. But that's beside the point. The other reason is that I've still got my stake and my string in here. I'm not sure, I might still need this for a reference at some point, so I just don't want to mess with it quite yet. But you know, until I know that I'm done with this for sure, he's just gonna stay in there, which is really where he should be anyway. Callie, leave the cat alone. Sit. You stay there. Half a flake in the morning, half a flake in the evening, and obviously the bucket of grain is what he's getting. And the reason that I'm not just giving him a whole flake in the morning is because I'm hoping that after he gets a half flake done, he'll start working on the grass a little bit more. It's hard for me to tell, but it does look like he's gaining a little bit, and I think today I will be working down here, and he's right here next to the chute. Maybe I'll grab the scale head. We can run him over the scale and get a weight on him, see if all this effort is doing any good. But the main goal for today is to get some of the pipe pre-cut for this alley project, and I'm hoping that I might even get some of that welded up today. That's what's going on today on Farmer Tyler Ranch. They cleaned that bale up pretty good, better than I thought they would, honestly, and they are kind of walking over here to check me out, so maybe I'll bring them another bale tomorrow, I don't know. Apparently number 11 found a pile of dirt she didn't like. Look at you. Well, here is number 53. This is the cow that I suspect was bred early. And if that's the case, she could have a calf. I mean, actually it does kind of look like she's filling up a little bit. Just getting started. I wouldn't expect her to have a calf tomorrow, but I think it's coming. What do you think? This cow here, number 63, she had the first calf last year, so I would kind of expect her to be early again this year. But I mean, that would make the most sense, right? If you have the first calf one year, you should breed back before everybody else. But looking over my notes from previous years, it's not always the case. In fact, I'm not sure that it's ever been the case. Number 42 here gave birth to the best performing steer last year. I think he's number 7, I think. So I'm really interested to see what she gives me this year. I hope she gives me a heifer so I can kind of start to hone in on that genetic line, because man, if all the calves looked like her calves, we'd be doing pretty good. Are we having a disagreement here, girls? So I think what I want to do is hook onto the hay wagon and bring it home and then put like 3 bales in it. And I think if I bring that back over, by the time they get through the 3 bales that are in that feeder, the grass will be taken off over here plenty good enough to keep them going. So the problem is I don't think I have my pintle hitch with me. I'll have to look. Yeah, I think I left the hitch in the shop, so that'll be a job for tomorrow. Okay, everything looks good over here. I'm just gonna get a count on these cows, make sure everybody is here, and then we'll run back over to the shop and start cutting on that pipe. Probably the most important thing to consider when you're notching pipe like this is that the notches on either end are clocked the same way. And the way that I do this is by laying the angle iron on the pipe like you saw, and then that gives me a reference line, the length of the pipe that I can pretty well depend on. I've got 15 of these notches that I need to get cut, so I'll show you a little bit more detail on this first one, but for the rest of them, I'm just gonna put my head down and try to get them done. What makes this a little bit harder is that I'm using a 2 3/8 pipe, or I guess technically this is 2-inch pipe. You know, little side note, something that I find frustrating. When you go to buy oil pipe, they call this 2 3 or 2 3/8 because the outer diameter is 2 3/8. But when you go to the steel yard and get pipe, they want you to use regular pipe sizes, in which case this would be 2-inch pipe. To make it even more confusing, some of the oil pipe that I got actually says 2 3/8 on the outside. So I don't know, this makes no sense to me, but this is just kind of where we're at. But anyway, since I'm using a template where you would use it to notch this pipe to weld it to pipe of its size, I have to do this a little bit differently because I'm welding this to pipe that is one size larger. So when I'm cutting along the line, I kind of know where to go a little bit wider and where to go a little bit narrower, if that makes sense, to make that notch just slightly bigger. And you know, you can always kind of clean it up with the grinder to make everything fit right. But this one looks good, which means we've got 14 more to go. But now that I've got a notch on this end, I can measure off of that to the low spot of my notch on this end, and if I took measurements right and if I cut this right, everything should fit. 79 1/8. It's about right there. You can just put the template right at it. You should be good right there. Well, I'm only on the second pipe here, and we've got a pretty serious problem, and I guess it's kind of my fault. When I cut this end off and it fell down to the ground, it just so happened to hit the torch lead for the plasma cutter, and it damaged it pretty severely. If you look at it here, you can maybe see that the air line in the torch cable is punctured and one of the wires is broken. So this is not good. It's going to be kind of tough to cut this without the plasma cutter. So I'm going to try to repair this. I don't know how that's going to go, but I'm going to at least give it a shot and see if I can't just at least get this job done. You know, in the meantime, I'll try to see if I can find one to order to replace this cable. But man, I was really hoping to get through these today. I guess I better make sure, yeah, this is turned off. You know what? I'm going to unplug it. That's even safer. So I'm hoping I can cut the housing back. And I mean, it looks like it only killed a red wire. So honestly, that shouldn't be that hard to replace. And then the air hose is honestly what I'm a little more worried about. But we shall see what we can do here. So this red wire here, I think that's, I mean, obviously that's part of our problem. I think that's the entire problem. And then the air line, obviously. Sometimes you gotta do what you gotta do to get out of a bind, and that's kind of where I'm at here. You guys can probably not really see what I'm doing. Maybe that's for the best. So we got our wire repaired, more or less. I got tape around the air hose. I'm sure that will leak, but if enough pressure can get up to the torch to make the cut, then that's what we need. So we'll just kind of put this all back together and hope for the best. Like it never happened? First, let's see if it even works. Looking good so far. Well, I didn't get all the pipe cut, but I got as much as I want to try to do today. And before I head over to the ranch to start welding it up, I think that jerky is probably ready to come out of the smoker. Yeah. Yeah, it's ready. It's a little past ready, I'd say. These ones look pretty good. They're a little overdone. They seem like they're a little crunchy, but they might soften up a little bit in the fridge. That's what we'll say anyway. Back to the task at hand. When it comes to the horizontal rails, I usually figure put the bottom one a foot off the ground and then space them a foot on center with this heavy pipe. That seems to be about right. And what you end up with is a fence that is 5 feet tall. Well, I certainly know, because I do this every time, but I knew that I would forget to bring something over here. And it turns out that something is my level. So I've been eyeballing this to the best of my ability. I've got my square here in the corner, so it assumes if this post is plumb, then this should also be level. It's definitely close enough. And for the rest of them, it'll be easy because I can just measure down instead of use the level. But I think we're we're good enough to weld here. Yes, we're doing it. Well, maybe what I'll do is just tack everything up there first and look at it, and if everything looks good, then I'll go ahead and finish welding. And the other thing that I wanted to mention, actually, before I get started, is that starting with this top pipe is not a coincidence. I'm doing this intentionally. And the reason is that if you start on the bottom, then what can happen, especially like over here where we're welding to a lone post, there's nothing else holding this. If I was to weld the bottom horizontal end first, the heat from the weld would shrink that pipe just a little bit, which causes it to pull in. And if you do that as you go up, then by the time you're done, you've got this post that is not even close to straight because every weld pulls it a little bit. So that's why I measure everything first with it as it sits and then weld the top in. We're assuming that the concrete in the ground is going to hold the bottom and not let it move, and then this top horizontal will hold the top. Everything else at that point should stay the same. Well, I lost the battery on that time lapse, so I'm not exactly sure where it left off for you guys, but the pipes are in, they're welded. You can see I got 4 of them done. I still need 1 more at the bottom. I made a big boo-boo, and when I was measuring, sometimes I do this, I don't know why, but like I was measuring for 79 1/8. Well, one of them I accidentally cut at 78 1/8, and I know that I was just looking at the tape measure and I marked it on the wrong inch, and that's on me. So now I've got a pipe that is 1 inch too short and will not fit here. It won't fit here, won't fit in the next spot, but I think at the end of the loading alley it'll fit there, so it won't be wasted completely, but it's just kind of a shame that it didn't get welded up today. So in other words, that's as far as I'm gonna get with this today, but that's all right, because we got other stuff to do. At the beginning of the video, I said I wanted to try to weigh littles today if we had time, and I've been curious about this. I know a lot of you have too, so let's do that. I hid the wires down here under the chute so he wouldn't chew on them. And it looks like that plan has worked. All right, we got 0 on the scale. Let's get him up there. And just to freshen your memory, the last time I weighed him was when I was running the yearlings through to give him vaccinations a few months ago. And what was he? At that time, I think he was 180 pounds. Just a teeny tiny guy. I decided to look through the scale here to get an exact date. That was January 19th, post-weaning. Yeah, so that it would have been then. So January 19th, how many days is that? That was 40 days ago, so he was 180 pounds 40 days ago. Not too crazy, are you? It's open now. All right, what's the grand total here? Oh yeah, he's gained a little bit. So 253 pounds, that's good. That means that in the last 40 days, he's gained 73 pounds. And what is that? That's an average of 1.8 pounds per day. Out if you want. So there you go. He's not setting the world on fire with these outstanding gain numbers, but he is moving the right direction. He is gaining some, so I guess we'll just keep doing what we're doing for a little while and kind of see where he ends up. I certainly didn't get done what I set out to do today, and you know, destroying my plasma cutter temporarily certainly didn't help with that. But we got some done, and you know, there's always tomorrow. Thanks for hanging out with me today, guys, and I hope I'll see you again on Farmer Tyler Ranch.